on this. It'll look like the kind of Wi-Fi symbol almost on any of these. You can touch. Okay, heating element's off. This is kind of a good way to check, okay, did I burn up a heating element between every two components? They should be making that noise. You're basically shorting because these two are touching each other. If it doesn't get that noise going through, you might have popped one of the loops. Worth replacing that. Now, let's say you turn on the heating elements, you're not getting power there, and you know the computer's trying to send information. Basically, you got to go to the next component, which is the solid state relay back here. Now, in mods, they're always kind of in that location. On an above bar 4, like the machine up front, the little boiler wrap, it's actually attached to the boiler, basically. On an above bar 2, it's actually on top of this power panel. But the things you're going to want to look for there is, okay, I'm not heating. So first thing I want to make sure is the computer actually sending information to this. So this thing, basically all this is, it's an on-off switch. It's an optical switch, it's not a physical one. So there's a control signal right here, there's 2 smaller wires going to that, and that uses 3 volts for a control signal. So I'm going to make sure I got this on DC. Go between these 2 components here. Okay, you want to go ahead and hit the heating element. And you can see there, I'm getting, it'll read more like this, 2.5, because there's actually a diode in between that steals 0.7 volts always because it acts like a resistor. So it's still getting the right voltage, but you'll read 2 point something at any rate. And if you read that, then that means the computer's sending it, but you're not getting power through. You can, oh, you got it off. Yeah. You can see it's red in, red out, basically on the other side. So that means that component's probably broken if you're reading a control signal but not getting any voltage at the heating element. Solid state relay went bad for one reason or another. Normally I see that when, like, on our older machines we had a different PRV that allowed steam just basically to air. It's kind of traditional vent to air style. We've since been replacing those. So water damage will often ruin those things. Now, unfortunately, more often than not, it ruins them by having water on when it's heating up. And then that way you'll get a boiler heating continuously. And if you see that where you know, okay, this is heating and it shouldn't be. I'm going past my boiler set temp. Basically do the same thing. I'm getting voltage there. Now, is it something wrong with the computer and it's telling it to heat up when it shouldn't? And then you can see, okay, I'm getting a signal even though I don't want it. Or I've got no control signal here, I've got voltage over there, then again that component is ruined, but it basically, the switch got welded shut rather than welded open. It's kind of the way to look at it. So those are hopefully not common problems, but those are, as far as troubleshooting, kind of the easiest things to look over as far as problems, stuff like that. Trying to think.
You guys don't have a valve, safety valve on the boiler?
What's that?
A safety valve on the boiler when it's got steam?
We do, yeah. There's safety valves, so yeah. So there's this one will allow excess steam pressure off. Okay. But if that's happening, you want to fix the problem though, and so that's why I'm getting it. That it'll be an electrical situation, whether it's the heating element burnt up, or the solid state relay burnt up, or if both of those seem like they're in working order, you know, or you know, like you're not getting power there, and you know, hey, it should be heating up. I'm not getting a control signal, then the next step back, again, you just always got to work back. Something's wrong with the computer or connection between here and here, and it's not sending the signal when you want it to heat up. It's like, I'm low, why are you not heating up? And so you just got to keep tracing back. Basically, boiler's not heating up. First thing, go to the heating element, then go to the next component behind it, which is the solid state relay. If that seems fine, next component back, it's going to be the computer. Now, unfortunately, the computer, there's no point in, if you determine it's that, basically first thing to do is go over the kind of force stop reset thing that Alex went over with you to make sure it's not the connection between that and this that's the problem. If you know it's connected, and you know, you can go to switchboard and turn on water to that. Like, even if the boiler is cold, not heating up, you can still turn on water. You know, that's a good check. Like, obviously, if it's cold, you're not going to get any steam out. But you can, you know, there's things to say, okay, I've got connection between this computer and that computer. That's, you know, working. If I'm still not getting the boiler to heat up, something with connection between, you know, the signal for this, that could be the component. So at that point, you'll spend hours trying to figure out what is wrong in the computer, that unless you're a guy that, you know, nerds out on soldering up your own PCBs at home, I'd replace the computer. So.
I'm done PCB.
And then as far as another signal and electrical thing, it comes with this particular wire. If it's not enough for whatever reason, you need a longer one, let us know. It's a very specific USB cord. I think it's a 2428 or 2426, something like that on the gauge. And basically, because we have to modify the actual the Android operating system on there, so you can't, unfortunately, just replace that with, like, if someone drops something on that, breaks it, you can't just go buy a new Nexus tablet and put the Mincher app on it, because it actually has to modify the operating system, and we have to load particular kernels on it and unlock it and stuff like that. And that's because we need the stick wire so that we can charge with a full 5-volt charge and get communication at the same time. Otherwise, the stock one, you'll get one or the other. So if you replace this cord, you'll notice you either never get connectivity or the tablet keeps dying because it's not charging. Depending on the cable, you'll see one of those two behaviors. So, I think that covers most of the stuff for electrical. Do you guys have any more questions on this kind of stuff?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, aside from like a temperature probe being totally open or like drastically misreading when you look at the switchboard, is there a good way to just double check what the boiler temperature is? Just kind of checking to see its accuracy, like if it's 5-10 degrees off, or does that really matter?
I mean, it shouldn't matter like too terribly much. Obviously, for the real accurate temperature that you're brewing, you want that one working well, and that's easy enough to dip in.
Right.
If this is 5 degrees off or so, all that's really going to do is effectively change the pressure on your steam by like 1 or 2 psi. It actually won't affect anything that much if that particular thermistor is a couple degrees off. That being said, as far as measuring the temperature in there and seeing, you know, like how accurate it is, I don't have a good solution for that without, like, you know, there's not a secondary probe basically to put something in there in, and so it kind of is tough to give a super accurate, you know, reading on that. That being said, you know, if it's, you know, you noticed, you know, as far as behavior in the crucible, if it's just really blasting with steam and you keep overheating every time, and the, you know, boiler says it's low, and you know your water pressure at your mixing valve is high enough, then it might be something that's worth, you know, replacing that, drain the boiler, replace the thermistor, or something like that. So yeah, unfortunately, there's not really a secondary cord or anything to check the boiler temp as far as a reference. Anybody else? Hopefully, it's kind of a lot of stuff going on with the 220 and then running everything off the low voltage system, but that's what happens when you put a computer into anything, basically. But that being said, it kind of makes it easy. There's only a couple components that use 220. Everything else is pretty much DC, and, you know, if you need to check anything as far as something's not working, you know, it's pretty easy to unplug and check for those systems. Or in the switchboard, you should be able to kind of monitor and see, you know, for example, like flow meters. If there's debris caught in there, this and that, and you know, you hit water, and where it says flow meter, that's not moving incrementally relatively quick. It's going slow. Either there's debris in here, or there's something bad with the Hall effect sensor, and you know, take it apart, clean it, and or replace it. You know, things like that. So it's good to check on there for reference. That's pretty much mostly as far as like kind of troubleshooting things I've seen. Only other thing is kind of pseudo plumbing and electrical I've seen is I've only seen it on machines that have been in high use after about a little over 2 years. You start seeing steam or water kind of constantly leaking at the crucible. These components could just be getting worn out, and basically the spring in there that's keeping it closed is getting worn out, and it just slowly is kind of pushing it open, and it's allowing the water or steam to just kind of slowly leak into the crucible itself. You can take these apart and clean it. There's probably debris in there, or the spring could be getting worn out. To be perfectly honest, in either case, the time it takes to take these apart, clean it out, put it back on, hopefully you got the debris cleaned. If you didn't, still leaking again, you just wasted, you know, half an hour of work or whatever. To be perfectly honest, most of the time if you see something leaking, this and that, I just replace this component because they're normally relatively inexpensive compared to like you know, what you got to charge is an hourly rate to work on the machine. It's normally not worth the, okay, you know, I'll try and save 20 bucks by, you know, doing this, and then if that didn't do it, then you just, you know, wasted that half an hour to an hour of work depending on what you're doing. So if you're seeing problems with these, whether it's not opening, whatever, you determine it's definitely this thing getting worn out, rather than trying to repair it. It's bad to be a bit of a wasteful society, but unfortunately this company will not sell us replacement components for these either. And so it's a, nope, we'll sell you this as an assembly. And it's because they're worried about their patents, this and that, and you going and manufacturing their components somewhere else cheaper and buying your own replacement parts and not buying theirs anymore. So at least that's what they tell me. But that's about the only other component I've seen. And then these, you know, if there's debris that makes its way through the boiler, through the whole line, gets caught in here, that may not spin. Or if your flow rate on here isn't high enough, or your pressure's too low, it can actually, because this is a relatively large port on here, you can slowly fill the crucible if this is too slow, and it won't be enough physical force of the water to actually spin the impeller, so you'll overfill because your water's not coming in like quick enough, basically, to turn the impeller that's in here. So that's kind of the other big reason, and the most common problems on the machine are honestly on initial setup, not having good flow rate and pressure. If you get those things, honestly, most of your troubleshooting will pretty much go away. Cool. Any other questions on how any of the components work at all? Anything that wasn't like super solid as far as understanding any of these systems? Alright, and we'll continue to keep more and more stuff available as we just redid our website, and we're shooting more videos and getting more like exploded diagrams and everything else for all the machines and manuals and everything up. So kind of keep checking back for the tech page stuff, and we'll get more and more resources available to reference and check back to on our website. And of course, Alex will usually be available by phone depending on what time you're calling anyway. Cool. Well, thanks guys.
Thank you.
I don't know if you're in the lunch, what time it is.